This is the world at its most spectacular, the most memorable, most exotic, most magical must-see destinations. Selected by the world's most seasoned travel editors. These are the best of the best. Explore the most incredible monuments that mark mankind's historical footprint on the planet. A palace that inspires awe centuries after its completion. Glorious tombs, the final resting places of powerful rulers. A city built on a lagoon. Each destination is iconic and unique, where ingenuity of design takes center stage. They are the marvels of mankind. Overrun by jungle, the ruins of a Mayan city are one of the world's archaeological wonders. In the Central American country of Guatemala, the ancient city of Tikal was just one center of Mayan culture. Many civilizations, including the Incas, Aztecs, and Nazcas, flourished in the Americas before Columbus sailed the Atlantic. But the Maya were the only people to have a fully developed written language combined with a sophisticated understanding of mathematics and astronomy. In the towns nearby, descendants of the Maya keep many of the ancient traditions alive. Mayan words survive in the language. Mayan patterns are visible in their clothing. And in the morning, the tantalizing smells of corn flour and burning wood fill the air. Along with the sizzle of fresh tortillas cooking on outdoor stoves. To experience the past requires a journey from the villages of the indigenous people into the jungle of Tikal National Park. The roar of howler monkeys, reputed to be the loudest mammal in the world, fills the air. Calls of exotic birds merge with the incessant hum of insects to produce a timeless jungle chorus that accompanies a journey into the past. The locals always knew of the ruins, but rumors of a lost city haunted the descendants of the European conquerors. In 1848, Modesto Mendez and Ambrosio Tut led an expedition that pinpointed the site in the lowland rainforest. It was perhaps no surprise that the dense jungle had hidden the ruins from outsiders for so long. At dawn, mists wreathed the white-topped pyramids. Tikal is the largest excavated site in the Americas, and yet only about 20% of the thousands of buildings that made up the city have been rescued by archaeologists from the vegetation that had overwhelmed them. Mayan influence stretched from what is now Honduras to southern Mexico, but each Mayan city seems to have operated as a separate entity. There were often deadly clashes between Mayan city-states. While impressive from the air, Tikal is spectacular at ground level. Palaces, temples, and ball courts face each other around open plazas. Tikal means place of voices. Those voices would have echoed through this thriving city, whose population may have exceeded 100,000. The earliest buildings here could date back to the 4th century BC. At the height of the classic Mayan period, from 200 to 850 AD, the community covered nearly 65 square kilometers. Tikal dominated the Mayan region, while trading as far as the mysterious civilization of Teotihuacan, near modern-day Mexico City, over 1,000 kilometers away. Palaces and temples were highly decorated with reliefs depicting animals, battles, and sacrificial offerings. Glyphs such as the double bird and jaguar paw represented the 33 rulers of Tikal, including at least one queen. The most prominent structures are 6-step pyramids made of stone. The tallest stands 60 meters high. Each was surmounted by a temple. Priests would preside from on high as animals, and sometimes humans were sacrificed to the Mayan gods. In courts with banked spectator seating, the ritual ball game was played, sometimes with fatal consequences for the losers. The citizens practiced intensive agriculture, but reliance on seasonal rainfall left the population vulnerable to drought. Drought or disease may have led to the sudden and mysterious way that this glorious city was abandoned, sometime around 900 AD. Over 1,000 years after its demise, it remains a haunting reminder of the transient nature of human civilization. Today, the only remaining residents of Tikal are monkeys, birds, and other forest creatures. But the spirit of the ancient Maya within this jungle enclave feels eternal. The pyramids of Giza are the most spectacular and most famous monuments of the ancient world. In North Africa, a civilization flourished that still withholds many of its secrets. But one pinnacle of its achievements lies on the outskirts of Cairo, Egypt's capital. Even in a bustling marketplace in today's Egypt, there's a palpable connection with the past through the way people dress and the goods on sale. People have been living and farming here on the banks of the River Nile for thousands of years. They are descendants of one of a handful of mother civilizations, places where mankind abandoned nomadic ways and created permanent settlements. Preserved in the dry desert that has been a feature of this area for millennia, Egypt has more relics from antiquity than any other country. The ancient Egyptians were masters of stone. Their creations were exquisitely detailed and finely crafted. And many were on a monumental scale that would be unmatched until the Renaissance in Europe. Temples, tombs, and statues can still be seen near the river that gives life to the country, just as it did in antiquity. Hieroglyphs reveal the myths and histories of gods and rulers who were considered to be living gods. The most breathtaking of these timeless ruins are the tombs built to ease ancient Egyptian royalty into the afterlife. Nothing in all of Egypt is as incredible as the Pyramids of Giza. They were built overlooking the ancient Egyptian capital of Memphis and the River Nile, which was used to bring building materials to the site. They are even more impressive considering that they were built with the primitive tools of a Bronze Age society. There is much speculation among Egyptologists about exactly how stone blocks averaging 2.5 tons in weight and some 4 times as heavy were maneuvered precisely into position. The generally accepted hypothesis is they were dragged up specially built ramps using ropes made of papyrus. It was an amazing feat of manual labor. And impressive as the pyramids are now, they must have been dazzling when their polished white limestone casing stones were intact. Some 4,500 years ago, they were the tallest buildings in the world, and for thousands of years, nothing surpassed their size. The 3 great pyramids of Giza were the last resting places of pharaohs from the 4th dynasty. The largest was built for Khufu, Cheops in Greek. Next to that is the pyramid attributed to Khafre, Khufu's son. And the third is the tomb of his son, Menkaure. In addition, there are 3 smaller pyramids for Khufu's wives, a host of temples, the tombs of members of the royal court, alongside graves of workers and craftsmen. The pyramids precisely face the cardinal points of the compass. The positions of the 3 great pyramids are said to align with the stars on Orion's belt. Some suggest that the remaining structures on the plateau also represent celestial bodies. But the likely truth is less glamorous, even if it reflects an understanding of more fundamental forces on Earth. The pyramids are positioned over the only expanse of bedrock in the area that could support their weight. Just across the plateau from the pyramids, the guardian of the site sits in enigmatic repose. The Sphinx has the body of a lion and the head of a king, possibly Pharaoh Khafre. It faces east, awaiting the rising sun. The word Sphinx comes from Greek mythology. In Arabic, the statue is called Abu al-Hol, Father of Terror. To this day, mysteries surround the Great Sphinx. It was carved from a single limestone outcrop. Most archaeologists believe that this was accomplished around the time when the pyramids were built, about 2500 BC. But despite over 2 centuries of scholarship, no evidence has been uncovered that establishes its exact age. Some experts say that the Sphinx is much older than 4,500 years. They offer as evidence patterns of erosion on the stone which seem to suggest it was affected by running water in a time before the desert conditions of the 4th dynasty. The Sphinx remains a magnificent and mysterious testament to one of the world's greatest civilizations. And as the ultimate tribute to that influential mother civilization, the pyramids of Giza are the last of the 7 wonders of the ancient world still standing today. They offer a glimpse of a magnificent past that impressed people from the ancient Greeks to Napoleon and up to the present. A reminder of how mankind's creations can endure. At first glance, it seems unlikely, a city built on water, but it's real, a place of romance and history. In northern Italy, on the shores of the Adriatic Sea, is a city on a lagoon, Venice, the city of bridges. Tourists may outnumber residents, but to appreciate the allure of Venice, it has to be seen as the Venetians themselves see it. To them, it's not a relic, but a living, breathing, vital place steeped in culture and history. Before the city comes to life, as the first rays of the sun sneak over the horizon, workboats that are the driving force of the city are readied for the daily tasks of delivering goods and ferrying people. It has been like this for centuries. The only ways to explore beyond the spots that are magnets for tourists is on foot and by boat. There are no cars in the old city. Nothing compares to cruising over the velveteen water with a knowledgeable gondolier. The city is spread over 118 islands, linked by 150 canals. The total population is about 250,000, but only 60,000 live in the historic center, a number dwarfed by the 12 million or so tourists that visit the city every year. They crowd the Plaza San Marco, snapping photos of its gorgeous arches and impressive marble sculptures. But on leaving the beaten path, it's clear that there's more to Venice. The waterways are the lifeblood of the city, with over 400 bridges to keep the foot traffic moving. After the fall of Rome in the 5th century AD, the Italian countryside became a dangerous place. To escape the Visigoths and the Huns, refugees built, literally, a city on the sea. They drove wooden piles, brought from Russia, into the mud to support foundations for their homes. The strategy worked. Venice's unique location made it very difficult to conquer. Many of the buildings standing today are balanced on those same thousand-year-old piles. Venice grew into a powerful maritime city, a center of commerce that also absorbed creative energy from the variety of people that passed through its waterborne gates. As a result, a mixture of Gothic, Byzantine, and Renaissance styles converge in the architecture. Wealth flowed in from the ports of Palestine, Istanbul, North Africa, and the Western Mediterranean. And some traders, like the famous Venetian Marco Polo, even managed to reach China. The riches that merchants brought to the city were used to finance the elegant mansions of Venetian nobility that line either side of the Grand Canal. In Venice, culture runs through the city's veins. Its rich history provides inspiration for the Venetian Carnival. It takes place in the 10 days leading up to the Christian festival of Lent. Many residents don traditional Venetian masks during the celebrations. The masks create a sense of anonymity and protect people from being judged by their behavior during Carnival. But there is a darker side to Venice. The city's planners have a unique challenge. Venice has been sinking, And thanks to global warming, sea levels are slowly rising. 100 years ago, the Plaza San Marco might flood 10 times a year. Today, it's underwater more than 60 times a year. But there is a rescue plan. Engineers are creating a flood barrier that they hope will hold back the worst high tides of the Adriatic. Perhaps Venetians will be able to continue to use their grand entranceways and not be chased to their upper floors by encroaching water. The survival of Venice isn't just an issue for the local population. Its very existence as a haven of culture and history is important to the whole world. Sometimes a single masterpiece of design dominates a landscape, even a whole country. One of the most celebrated monuments to devotion and everlasting love sits majestically on the banks of the river Jumana in the North Indian state of Uttar Pradesh, the Taj Mahal. The nearby city of Agra is a bustling metropolis of almost 2 million people. It was once the capital of the Mughal Empire, the Muslim rulers of India who reigned from the mid-16th to the 18th century. It's home to some of the greatest examples of medieval Indian architecture. But they are all surpassed by the glow of the Taj Mahal's white marble. From the entrance, the symmetry of the structure can be appreciated. It's surrounded by a Mughal garden set out in a Persian style that matches the symmetry of the buildings. A long reflecting pool leads visitors through the gardens of paradise towards one of the world's most recognizable silhouettes. The central mausoleum is framed by 4 minarets, each more than 40 meters high. The story of the Taj Mahal is nearly as famous as the monument itself. In 1631, the Mughal queen Mumtaz Mahal died in childbirth. She was the favorite wife of Shah Jahan, who commissioned the Taj Mahal as a testament to their enduring love. It took 20,000 workers more than 20 years to complete the masterpiece. The marble was brought by elephant from Rajasthan. Jasper came from the Punjab. Precious and semi-precious stones arrived from as far away as China, Tibet, and Arabia. The tomb eventually became the final resting place of Emperor Jahan, as well as his wife. The outside of the building seems to reflect the changes in light from dawn to dusk. The decorative elements inside are exquisite. The many labyrinthine passageways, inlaid gemstones and inscriptions combine elements of Persian, Turkish, Indian, and Islamic style. In the center of the buildings, lattices carved from solid marble let in just enough natural light to create a serene, contemplative mood. The details of the individual design elements of the building echo the precise symmetry of the whole complex. But the wear and tear of millions of visitors, along with Agra's increasing air pollution, mean that the Taj Mahal must be continuously maintained. So in the grounds of the Taj Mahal, artisans work meticulously to restore and repair this unrivaled work of art. Thanks to these skilled craftsmen working with traditional techniques, the mausoleum will continue to impress generations to come. Whenever visitors gaze upon the beautiful outward form of the Taj Mahal, they can reflect on this monument to devotion and wonder at the vision that conjured glory from death. There's an ancient and spiritual city filled with holy shrines that attracts pilgrims from across the world. High in the Judean hills lies Jerusalem, one of the most historic cities in the world. The 10 oldest cities on the planet are located in the Middle East. Jerusalem is one of them, having been founded around 2800 BC. Here, traditional and contemporary cultures are often seen side by side. It has developed into a modern, fast-paced city that seems to sit comfortably alongside its archaeological heritage. Ancient limestone buildings crowd the hills adjacent to modern concrete structures. The three monotheistic religions of the world, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all regard Jerusalem as a holy place. Modern Jerusalem surrounds the old city, which is less than a square kilometer in area. There are 4 quarters within the city walls: Jewish, Christian, Muslim, and Armenian. 3 times a day, Orthodox Jews pray at the western wall of the Temple Mount. Known also as the Wailing Wall, it was part of the Second Temple, a great synagogue that was built in 516 BC during the reign of Darius the Great and destroyed by the Romans in 70 AD. Jerusalem has a place at the heart of the Jewish religion. For Christians, the city also has special meaning. To celebrate Easter, a Greek Orthodox procession follows the route that Jesus is thought to have taken on his way to crucifixion. Their destination, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. This church was built in the time of Constantine I in about 325 AD on the location of the Hill of Calvary, where Jesus was believed to have been crucified. Within the sumptuous basilica are gilded walls and exquisite arches. Next to the altar, a stairway climbs to the place where tradition says Christ died. This is a sacred place of pilgrimage for many of the world's 2 billion Christians. Islam also holds the city sacred. The Al-Aqsa Mosque is sited prominently on top of the Temple Mount. Nearby is the Dome of the Rock, which covers the foundation stone. The foundation stone is where Muslims believe their Prophet Muhammad made his ascent to heaven. The Dome of the Rock is Islam's 3rd holiest place after Mecca and Medina. Jerusalem changed hands many times over the centuries as a result of the Crusades, Ottoman rule, and the period leading up to the declaration of the Jewish state in 1948. It has been said that the city has been destroyed twice, besieged 23 times, and captured and recaptured 44 times. Medieval maps placed Jerusalem at the center of the world. It's an honor that perhaps the location deserved. For some visitors, the effect of being near so much religious history can be quite profound. They become flustered, prone to confusion, and even to fainting spells. But this is an especially intense reaction. And most visitors consider being in proximity to so much spirituality rather inspiring. Jerusalem is a vibrant and growing city. Since the establishment of the State of Israel, its population has more than quadrupled. Until a lasting peace is established in the Middle East, political tensions are likely to be focused on Jerusalem. Most visitors to this historic city consider it a rare privilege to be able to walk through so much history and to have so many sacred places to admire and celebrate. The last of the royal palaces commissioned by the Muslim rulers of Spain was created as a paradise on earth. In southern Spain, perched on a hilltop overlooking the ancient city of Granada, is an exquisite palace with a celebrated history, the Alhambra. Towards the end of the 13th century, the Muslim rulers who had dominated Spain for 700 years built a grand palace that would become their last refuge on the Iberian Peninsula. The Islamic Empire spread out from Arabia after the death of the Prophet Muhammad in 632 AD. At its height, it stretched from India to Portugal. The Moors, nomadic people from North Africa who had converted to Islam, ruled throughout Spain from the 8th century. The crowning glory of their kingdom was the Alhambra. But by the time it was finished, much of Spain had been reconquered by the Christians. Granada and the Alhambra became the last Moorish stronghold and managed to thrive for another 2 centuries through trade and diplomacy. It was, however, largely insulated from the influences of the rest of the Islamic world, and so it developed unique artistic traditions still visible today. The translation of Alhambra from the Arabic is Red Fortress, a name derived from the red clay that was used in its construction. At its peak, a Moorish poet described a pearl set in emeralds, an allusion to the whitewashed buildings nestled in a forest. Hidden within the imposing castle walls and towers is an oasis of decorative tranquility in its chambers and gardens. After the Moors were expelled from Granada in 1492, the Christian rulers overlaid European influences on the Islamic structure. The bland exterior masks a stunning interior. The imposing ramparts of the Alhambra enclose secret gardens, tranquil courtyards with trickling fountains, and magnificent palaces decorated in exquisite detail. Though the scale of the Alhambra is impressive, the glory of the work is evident in these features. Inside, ornate geometric patterns of interlocking shapes cover nearly every surface. Religion forbade the depiction of the human form, so God is represented in the decorative features and through quotations from the Quran, set out in ornate calligraphy. Honeycombed ceilings with elaborate moldings are inspired by geometry. When exploring the Alhambra, half the thrill is in discovering yet another perfectly harmonious space, illuminated by the dappled light filtering through ornate screens. The palace's open plan allows the breeze to pass between the rooms, wafting scents from the gardens and keeping the residences cool. Nature and practicality meet in a delightful combination within the palace. Everywhere there is the sound of running water flowing through hidden stone channels to richly ornamented fountains. The role of water was crucial to the entire concept. A channel cut through the hill on which the Alhambra stands diverts water from the Darro River to satisfy the needs of the palace. After the Christian royalty of Spain established control over Granada, some of the superb Islamic decoration was lost forever. But through all its trials across the centuries, the Alhambra shines as a monument to the vision of the Moorish leaders. By evening, the moon highlights the buildings with an ivory sheen. The Alhambra was designed as a tribute to the wonders of God's creation. The Moorish kings may have been hoping for an early start on the road to heaven when they devised this paradise on earth. In one of the world's busiest cities stand three spectacular landmarks. East meets west. Europe rubs up against Asia in the ancient Turkish capital of Istanbul. Fish markets and bustling bazaars have long dominated the waterfront of this maritime city. It has been the largest city on the planet as the capital of 4 empires. Byzantium was the city's first name. Constantine changed it to Constantinople, from where he ruled the Eastern Roman Empire. And it was later the capital of the Latin and Ottoman empires. Divided by the Bosphorus Strait, half the city is in Europe, the other half in Asia. It's the only city in the world that straddles 2 continents. And over millennia, the city has adapted to major changes brought about by its geographical position. There is one building that embodies those upheavals, the incredible Hagia Sophia. It was built in the 6th century, and for nearly 1,000 years was the largest cathedral in Christendom. In Greek, it's known as the Church of the Holy Wisdom. It's a grand and impressive building. Material was brought to the site from all over the Byzantine Empire. Inside, under one of the largest domes in the world, there is an overwhelming feeling of space. The dome is 31 meters across and over 55 meters high. Emperor Justinian I oversaw the completion of the basilica. The basilica was dedicated in 537 AD, but it wasn't until the reign of Justinian's successor, Justin II, that the decorations were completed. In 1453, the Ottoman Turks conquered Constantinople. Sultan Mehmed II decreed that Hagia Sophia be converted into a mosque. Fortunately, many of the Christian decorations weren't destroyed, just painted over. Today, it's a museum, offering the visitor a unique blend of Christian and Islamic religious design. Just a stone's throw from Hagia Sophia, Sultan Ahmed I commissioned the Blue Mosque in the early 17th century. The Sultan planned the most magnificent mosque in the empire. He included 6 minarets. This was the same number as the mosque in Mecca, the spiritual center of Islam. In order to calm the anger this created, Ahmed paid for the addition of a 7th minaret in Mecca. The Blue Mosque combines the grandeur of Ottoman construction with the grace of Islamic design. It gets its name from the blue tile from Iznik that decorate its interior. The architects precisely placed 260 windows to let in just enough light to make the interior sparkle. And they included courtyards to provide a retreat from the commotion of the city. But the Ottoman Empire also had a strong secular influence on Istanbul. Sultan Mehmed II wanted a palace that reflected his supremacy as the ruler of the 2 seas and the 2 continents. The Topkapi Palace is laid out with low buildings surrounding a series of courtyards. The inner courtyard housed the private quarters of the Sultan, where he lived with his family and the harem guarded by eunuchs. The Sultan's mother presided over the concubines. If they became a favorite, they might rise in status as one of the Sultan's wives. If mosques were places of contemplation, the Topkapi Palace was the location for royal intrigue. The Ottoman rulers who expanded the palace over the 400 years it was in use had the resources to build a legacy that's still impressive today. And it takes an honored place in Istanbul's glorious history. The largest building project in history was a massive undertaking over hundreds of years that took many lives during its construction. Along the northern frontier of the world's most populous country runs the longest fortification on the planet, stretching over thousands of kilometers, the Great Wall of China. A land of over 1 billion people has been, during its history, the home to sophisticated ancient cultures. The Great Wall seems to stretch forever. Starting at the sea, it crosses lush valleys, mountains, and harsh deserts. Legend has it that it's the only man-made structure visible from low Earth orbit. But that isn't true. Despite its great length, it's only 9 meters across at its widest, not nearly substantial enough to be seen from space. as a deterrent to invading armies, it was certainly a daunting barrier. It remained a powerful symbol for millennia. What was, at its zenith, a defensive structure about 6,700 kilometers long, has now faded to a ruin in many places. But where the wall remains intact, it can be appreciated as it marches across mountain ridges into the distance. It was begun in the 3rd century BC as separate constructions defending 3 warring states. Over a period of 2,000 years, the walls were extended and modified to protect the shifting borders of successive dynasties. In some places, the wall was little more than a mud barrier, but at its most impressive sections, it was more than 12 meters tall. For centuries, invaders challenged China's frontiers, most notoriously the Manchurians from the northeast and Mongols from the northwest. At its peak, the Ming Dynasty wall was garrisoned with more than 1 million men trying to keep aggressors at bay. Sections of the wall were built from whatever materials were handy: packed earth, stone blocks, and tiles. But during the 1400s, large portions of the original wall were reinforced with brick. Over 10,000 guard towers were built. If attacked, each tower could communicate with the next through signal fires. The region around Beijing, the capital established in the Ming Dynasty, was especially fortified. However, the armies of Manchuria managed to breach the wall in 1644. They succeeded, not through force of arms, but with the help of a disaffected border commander who opened the wall's gates. The Manchurians conquered China and ruled it until the early 20th century. The wall is long past its practical use. Today, it is so much more than just a fortification. Rather than keeping enemies out of China, it now lures visitors in. It's one of the most popular tourist attractions in the world. Its long serpentine path is a testament to the ingenuity and resourcefulness of several great Chinese dynasties. There's an ancient city cut from the cliffs that surround it. 180 kilometers south of the Jordanian capital Amman, Petra is a stunning vision of craftsmanship. Here in the hot, dry Wadi Rum desert, temperatures often reach 45 degrees Celsius. And yet a wealthy and powerful people once thrived here. They were called the Nabateans, and they were the masters of waterways, trade routes, and camel caravans. Most people would consider this an inhospitable terrain, and it seems an unlikely place to establish a city. But it is precisely positioned at the crossroads of trade routes between Arabia, Africa, Persia, and the Mediterranean. Camels are the lifeblood of the desert. They carry heavy burdens over long distances. Even though they move slowly, they can travel for long periods without food or water. And for centuries, They have been essential to desert communities, such as the Bedouin, nomadic Arabs who first domesticated them. The monotony of this rugged terrain is broken by a narrow cleft in the canyon, a geological fissure in the sandstone. It's known as the Seek in Arabic, the shaft. Nearly 2 kilometers long and just a few meters wide in places. In Petra's heyday, this was a perfect natural gateway, easily defended. At its end, one of the most dramatic facades in the world is revealed. Al-Khazneh, or the Treasury, is Petra's most famous landmark. After millennia, it still retains a stately feel. It's an ornately carved stone edifice, and one of some 800 structures at Petra. The craftsmanship is exquisite. From the columns to the capitals, and from the sculptures to the pilasters. But by contrast, the interiors of many of Petra's buildings are unadorned and empty. Most were not residences. They were not built for the living. They were palatial tombs and funerary monuments for the city's wealthiest families. In Greek, the word Petra means rock. The name offers connotations of permanence. Indeed, it has survived earthquakes, abandonment, looting, and centuries of neglect. But it has nonetheless remained remarkably well preserved. Archaeologists have had difficulty establishing the date of the settlement's founding, but they have been able to decipher some of the mysteries of Petra. Its unique location allowed the Nabateans to control the lucrative incense trade from Arabia, as well as gold and silver from as far away as Africa and the Far East. The canyon and the surrounding hills offered unique protection, but the key to the location was the Nabateans' mastery of water. They captured flash floods in cisterns and built an elaborate water management system that harnessed the life-giving flow of distant springs. Petra became an artificial oasis in the middle of the hostile desert, an oasis that attracted traders in droves. The city was a center of power in the heart of the Arabian desert. By the beginning of the 2nd century AD, the Romans had occupied the area and absorbed Petra into their empire. The city adopted influences from its new rulers, adapting Roman architecture and urban planning. It flourished until a massive earthquake in 363 AD damaged the precious water system. Residents abandoned the city, and it fell silent for hundreds of years. It was rediscovered in 1812 by Swiss explorer Johann Ludwig Burckhardt. Petra became an inspiration to 19th century travelers and was eulogized in a sonnet as the rose-red city half as old as time. It's the city that defied time. Petra is with us still, a monument to the ingenuity of the ancients and one of the marvels of mankind. This is the world at its most spectacular, the most memorable, most exotic, most magical must-see destinations. Selected by the world's most seasoned travel editors. These are the best of the best. In the Central American country of Guatemala, the ancient city of Tikal was just one center of Mayan culture. Many civilizations, including the Incas, Aztecs, and Nazcas, flourished in the Americas before Columbus sailed the Atlantic. But the Maya were the only people to have a fully developed written language combined with a sophisticated understanding of mathematics and astronomy. In the towns nearby, descendants of the Maya keep many of the ancient traditions alive. Mayan words survive in the language. Mayan patterns are visible in their clothing. And in the morning, the tantalizing smells of corn flour and burning wood fill the air. Along with the sizzle of fresh tortillas cooking on outdoor stove, outsiders for so long. At dawn, mists wreath the white-topped pyramids. Tikal is the largest excavated site in the Americas, and yet only about 20% of the thousands of buildings that made up the city have been rescued by archaeologists from the vegetation that had overwhelmed them. Mayan influence stretched from what is now Honduras to southern Mexico, but each Mayan city seems to have operated as a separate entity. There were often deadly clashes between Mayan city-states. While impressive from the air, Tikal is spectacular at ground level. Palaces, temples, and ball courts face each other around open plazas. Tikal means place of voices. Explore the most incredible monuments that mark mankind's historical footprint on the planet. A palace that inspires awe centuries after its completion. Glorious tombs, the final resting places of powerful rulers. A city built on a lagoon. Each destination is iconic and unique, where ingenuity of design takes center stage. They are the marvels of mankind. Overrun by jungle, the ruins of a Mayan city are one of the world's archaeological wonders. To experience the past requires a journey from the villages of the indigenous people into the jungle of Tikal National Park. The roar of howler monkeys, reputed to be the loudest mammal in the world, fills the air. Calls of exotic birds merge with the incessant hum of insects to produce a timeless jungle chorus that accompanies a journey into the past. The locals always knew of the ruins, but rumors of a lost city haunted the descendants of the European conquerors. In 1848, Modesto Mendez and Ambrosio Tut led an expedition that pinpointed the site in the lowland rainforest. It was perhaps no surprise that the dense jungle had hidden the ruins from